So, hello everybody. My name is Zane, and we also have Vincenzo. We're doing our video on military trauma. Specifically, I'll be doing PTSD, and I think you too, right? PTSD
Yeah.
is, and I'm in the dual degree human sexuality and then online MSW program. And the reason I picked this video is I plan on working with veterans through the VA healthcare system. Specifically, people who have dealt with military sexual trauma, and there's a lot of PTSD, both combat and non-combat, really, that goes along with that. I think that's my piece for here. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, pretty similar. My name is Vincenza. I am also doing the assignment on PTSD. I am an active duty member, so I do work with patients that do have PTSD. And so I've chosen this just to broaden my understanding in how to different approaches that would be helpful, and also just layman terms in order to explain to those that have PTSD or may be diagnosed with in the future with PTSD.
And then for my video, and I'm lucky I get to go second, so I'll just steal everything that she says during her video. My client will be an adult that has PTSD, and I'll be explaining what that looks like for them and maybe a treatment that they can help use when they're having severe issues.
And a brief description on the hypothetical person I'll be working with is an adult male, has come in for a referral because of an alcohol-related incident, and through that assessment and screening, it turns out that there may be symptoms of PTSD.
All right, are you ready again? Yep.
Okay. So, good afternoon. I understand you're here due to a referral from your command because of an alcohol-related incident out in town. And based on your answers for the screening and assessment completed here today, I wanted to explain a little bit about post-traumatic stress disorder. It's rather known as PTSD. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this. It's pretty common in military to hear that. Oftentimes I meet other service members like yourself who have served in the war zone during this time. They experience being fearful of going to sleep at night because of mortars hitting their close to their quarters, going on missions where they have lost their battle buddy right next to them, and suffer guilt from not making different decisions, either to have saved their shipmate's life or a innocent civilian's life. Much like you have shared, there is a sense of unfinished business and the desire to go back out to war, and how life just isn't the same here back at home, and the chaos just becomes normal. This type of experience may influence a person emotionally, physically, psychologically, and even socially. So one may experience what is called traumatic hyperarousal. So this is where all of a sudden I remember the events that took place and become afraid of not only what happened while in the combat zone, but my reaction to what happened to the combat zone, or in the combat zone. In social situations, or just driving to the store where I receive signals of what once alerted me to danger, I now become anxious and everything seems dangerous. My body will then tense up, my heart rate will increase, it accelerates, and I become overly excited, and it could even feel like I'm having a panic attack. I no longer feel safe or can enjoy things out like in crowded places and that I used to enjoy, like busy restaurants, the movies, concerts, local events, because I'm just too on edge and I can no longer enjoy these events. Like, even grocery shopping can become a task where I just don't even want to do it because it's too much going on. Uh, when I must sit everywhere, my back needs to be towards the wall so that I can see who comes in and out of the area. And when this happens, I may suffer flashbacks where I feel panic and helplessness as if I'm experiencing trauma all over again. Or nightmares where I can't even sleep through the night anymore because I'm reminded over and over again what happened while out there. This also can cause, during this time, anger or fearful sooner than I would at little things, like sudden noises or the kids playing. Even I can become irritable. Besides feeling angry, anxious, fearful, or irritable, I usually feel numb now and don't seem to quite be able to connect with people anymore. And it's like I'm dead inside, like there's just no more emotions. This now affects my social life because I'm not able to enjoy hanging out with my friends anymore, and they don't seem to understand me anymore either, me or them. My relationships suffer because I'm disconnected and just don't see the world as I used to. And often we'll be hearing, wow, you've changed, or something's just not right anymore, like what happened while you're out there. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. I don't want to say like in a nutshell, but what I've been hearing today with what you've shared. And I just, is any of that sound familiar?
Yeah, actually, a lot of that sounds like things that I would say are happening with me in my life right now.
Okay, so from now, I'd like to schedule a follow-up appointment, and this referral now has been complete, the screening and assessment, and it looks like I'd like to further explore what you do relate to with what I shared to you about PTSD. Okay, so if you could go ahead and make an appointment with the front desk, I look forward to seeing you again.
All right, thanks. I'll do that. Appreciate it. Okay, so that was the first video, and I guess I'll just go straight into my piece. And so, having my client in the office, one of the first things I would like to talk to you about with your PTSD diagnosis is I just want to talk a little bit about how your brain works a little bit and why you're feeling some of the things that you might feel. And we'll go into some of those things that you might be experiencing. And I see that you'll probably recognize this from what I saw in your screening and some of the questions that you already answered. But one of the things I like to show a lot of clients is the hand-brain model. And one of the interesting things for this is B in sign language. So you already have the B for the brain. And in your brain, when you fold your fingers over your thumbs, my thumb's tucked in here, this is your frontal cortex. So a lot of what you think about during the day and the thoughts that you have are coming from this front part of your brain here. And then you go underneath that, and this is where it's the limbic system. You have your fight or flight, maybe you've heard of that before, type of reactions. They're very primal types of reactions. And sorry, should turn that off. But so what happens when you have trauma is that, take this piece of paper here, and come this piece of paper, and this paper represents trauma. You put that in there. Now, when you're trying to think and you're doing your rational thoughts, you're still holding on to this trauma. That's always going to be there, and that's always affecting your daily routine. Now, through treatment and working with the trauma will always be there. But when I'm holding on this balled up piece of paper, that's very effective, and I can feel that there's pressure there, and there's that feeling that something's going on. But once we get done with treatment, hopefully we take the trauma, there's just a thin piece of paper in there so that it barely affects what's going on within the brain, even though it's still here, right? So the problem with this, keeping this up here, is your part where you're thinking you're in control, it's now being interfered with. And when your prefrontal cortex, when you're not thinking about it, and the limbic system takes over, this could be anger, shame, guilt, and just some really primal driving forces that are going on right here. This can also affect your sexual response. So with the sexual response cycle, you have interest and you see someone you like, and you're feeling some things, and then you go through, and then there's the excitement, and then you get to that plateau and orgasm. Point and shoot is something I like to tell people about. When you're the previous things, your parasympathetic nervous system's kicking in. That's the point. and you have control over that. Then for the shooting or orgasm, you give up control, and that's this part of the brain controlling that. But when this is in here going on, that's why you may be experiencing the sexual difficulties that you're having, because you need to deal with the trauma so that this just isn't in control all the time, that inner primal part of your brain. And some of those other symptoms, we can talk about that are controlled by that. And when you experience trauma, it's this part of your brain that's kicking in because it wants to protect you in some way, and that's where that fight or flight comes in. There's also freeze as part of the fight or flight. They talk about the freeze response also, which is something that happens a lot of time when you experience trauma. And when you're re-experiencing through PTSD, that's where those feelings are coming from, that hypervigilance you may have. And a lot of veterans, maybe in your case, if you walk into a restaurant, maybe you go to the back table where you can see the door and people coming in, you know what's going on. It's actually pretty common, lower form of hypervigilance that military and law enforcement will experience, something as simple as that. But then it can progress where something reminds you of that initial incident, and now your muscles are starting to tense up, your blood's actually draining away from your extremities and going towards your core area. That's all part of that fight or flight response. And so breathing is one of the things that is connected to both that inner part and this outer part of the brain, because when you're asleep, you don't think about breathing. It's just happening. That's that inside part taking over the breathing. But you can tell yourself, I want to take a deep breath right now and let that out. You have control of that. That's what's going on in front. So when you are experiencing some symptoms of PTSD and maybe that hypervigilance kicking in, you feel your muscles building up, you can work on a breathing exercise. And one of the good things about a breathing exercise is you're now, just by taking a deep breath and you telling your body to do that, you're making this part of the brain take over from this part that wants you to freeze up and go in that fight or flight. But now, just by taking that breath, you are taking over with this and telling your body what to do. And that helps you take control of what you're experiencing in that moment, help you feel in the here and now than what you might be feeling as far as re-experiencing the trauma itself. Some other symptoms that you might have, disassociation is very common, and sometimes outer body experience is what some people might say for extreme form of disassociation, but feeling that you're not in your body. And even maybe a more mild form is just like feeling numb to everything. You're separating your feelings and your thoughts from the here and now. And even with that breathing exercise, or many different types of exercise, but we'll stick with breathing for now. Get that front part of the brain in charge, get you back into the here and now and not making you think that you're in that traumatic experience. A lot of combat veterans, once they come home, fireworks might be a big issue. July 4th, you might see things on Facebook. Don't forget your veterans to live nearby, things like that, because when you hear those, the explosion of fireworks, it can increase anxiety and those feelings of, if they were in a combat situation or explosions going off. IEDs were a very common thing for a few years that people experienced, mortars, things like that. So dissociation, the hypervigilance were two of the big things I want to discuss with you. Do you have any questions about anything so far?
No, thank you. You've pretty much cleared it up and explained a lot more than what I understood. Okay, great. There's other things we can talk about, but we're going to have several sessions as we go along with your therapy. And if you do have any questions about anything, you can feel free to bring it up at those times. And thanks for stopping by.